Okay. There we go. All right. So today we are talking about sponsorships, but we are talking about sponsorships in a different mindset. So I'm really hoping that what you're going to take away today is going to be something that's a little bit different than your traditional, like, get a season sponsor, or you're building your traditional sponsorship package. So I'm hoping to leave you with a little bit of more of a different mindset, something that's a little bit more COVID friendly, and a different way of thinking when it comes to finding sponsors. But first, who am I? So as Gab said, my name is Melissa Maltais. I am the interim membership and program lead for the BC AFM, taking over for Tess while she goes on parental leave. I'm also the executive director of the Fraser North Farmers Market Society. I've been there since May of 2019. Prior to that, my work in the farmers market sector has been with the Surrey Urban Farmers Market as their manager, as well as the New West Farmers Market, as pictured here, as their operations manager. But even before that, going way back, I've been a fundraiser and event planner for the past 15 plus years. I worked for the BC SPCA for a good period of time. I started a fund with them to help animals get veterinary treatment. And from the inception of the fund to 3 years later, I raised $1.4 million in sponsorship revenue, as well as all my campaigns were featured in newspapers. I was published in about 120 publications. And my campaigns were also featured on Martha Stewart Living, as well as the Ellen DeGeneres Show. So sponsorships are something that are near and dear to my heart. And for those of you who are like, ugh, sponsorships, we don't like those, they're hard to do. I get you. I totally get you. But I'm hoping that this presentation for you will help you overcome any sort of barriers that you might face when it comes to getting sponsorship and that revenue into your market and your not-for-profit. So on our agenda today, we're going to talk about sponsors. Where are they? Where can you find them? We're going to talk about networking and why you might be doing it wrong. And then we're going to talk about the different parts of your market that you can sell. And then we're going to talk about that crafting the sponsor or perhaps an ad sheet package. I would like to say that if at any time during my presentation you have questions, please feel free to ask. Put your hand up, type it in the Whova chat. Somebody will be able to read them out to me. Don't be shy. Even if you have a story of something that worked for you in relations to what we're talking about here, that would be great. The more we collectively learn from each other, I think the better off everyone will be. So we're going to get started. Sponsors, where are they? Where are they hiding? I don't know about you, but I hate cold calls. I really don't like walking up and down the streets with my little letters in hand and going into the businesses with no preemptive reason to talk to them, being like, hey, can you donate to our silent auction? Or can you, or would you be interested in sponsoring a part of our market? And that person looks at you and generally they'll be like, I'll take this and I'll get back to you later. And then you have to do the 3 or 4 follow-up calls. Or they'll be like, I'll take this and give it to the manager or the owner. And you're just like, is that ever going to see the light of day? So that's a really hard way to go and find your sponsorships. And if you don't have to do it that way, if you can find a more organic way to find sponsors, why wouldn't you do it that way? Let me talk to you about how. Instead of searching for those sponsors, start networking for those sponsors. What I want you to think about here is instead of those cold calls, instead of going out and constantly chasing these perhaps leads or just people that you think might be a good fit, have them come more to you. And how you do that is by developing and nurturing relationships within your community. So you go out there and You can either do it yourself, or if you're really uncomfortable with being that spokesperson, you can volunteer, one of my favorite words, one of your board members or perhaps another staff person to do it. But it's imperative that you start networking in your community. The places that you can network are within Facebook groups. And there's a lot of different types of business Facebook groups. There's, for myself, I find the most success in my Women in Business group for Maple Ridge. But there's also neighborhood associations. There's also like specialty groups. There's Fraser Valley business ones. There's Vancouver business ones. So just start going in there and start talking to people. Don't start posting about what you're doing, but just start having conversations. Check out who the admin is. Make friends with them and really just kind of delve into that group and what they're looking for. And if people have questions about different problems or barriers they face, mark it aside. Start answering those questions and being helpful from a personal basis. Another great place to do some networking is BIAs. So we have a BIA both in Maple Ridge and in Port Coquitlam, and they have a giant group of businesses that are looking for ways to expand their customer base. And so the BIA is a great one to have in your pocket as a friend. Get close to their executive directors, get into their newsletters, join their networking events. And I know it's hard because it's COVID and Zoom, sometimes it's just not the same. But a lot of them have different events. They're like coffee talks, or just start showing up. Start showing up and be present when these kinds of things are happening. Another great one that you may not have considered is your local Chamber of Commerce. There are a lot of different businesses that are part of the Chamber of Commerce. Usually they're bigger ones, but there's also quite a few solo entrepreneurs that are in there, as well as tech companies. You never know when there could be a really good fit or a good opportunity for your organization as well as a small business or a bigger business in your community. Our local Chamber of Commerce in Maple Ridge has a town hall every month that you can just sign in and go chat with people. And so that's a really good start. Instead of like hitting that pavement and going, to businesses and cold calling people on the phone, start joining the conversations in these 3 groups. And that's just the start. I'm sure there's other places in your community that you can also start joining the conversations. Now, networking. So you found the groups, you are going to join the town hall, and you're going to go start chatting with people. I don't know about you, but I've been to a lot of networking events, and when we were more in person, I can't tell you how many times somebody would come up to me and be like, "Hey, do you have a website? Do you need your website built? Oh, here's my card. Maybe you can call me if you need anything." And it's like, did you even bother to say hello or how I'm doing or find out more about what it is I do and why I'm here? Or it's just this constant barrage of "Hey, take my card." And that's just not the way to do it. Especially now that we're not meeting in person, it's harder to read people's cues. It's harder to have these interesting conversations about stuff that's in front of you. So don't be that guy. I mean, he's very handsome. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but you don't want to be that person who's automatically thinking about how you can benefit from the relationship in the networking. I think that what's really important is my next slide here, is that networking is about nurturing connections over time. And you could take that word out, that networking word, and write sponsorships is about nurturing connections over time. I can't hammer this enough that it's all about those connections. And guess what? It's not about you. It's not about your nonprofit. It's not about your organization if you're not a nonprofit. It's not about your market. It's all about them. And how do we find out more about them? We skip the small talk. I know it's hard. And if you don't like networking, it's going to be even harder. But man, when you are genuine and you are vulnerable and you practice your active listening skills, people notice. And you create the foundation for a great relationship with somebody who happens to run a local business, with somebody who happens to be wanting some sort of cross-promotional advertising opportunity, goodwill for the community down the road. But you have to start somewhere, and that somewhere starts with conversations. And again, it's not about what they can do for my market. Like, yeah, I totally want your money. I would love to have your $100, your $500, your donation to my silent auction. Don't be fooled. I totally want that. But I also am super excited about how I can help you. How can I put your business forward? How can I get you more customers? Because the more success you have, the more success I'm going to have through you. So you ask them about their journey. If you're not comfortable with networking as a whole and you fall back to that small talk, a great question, and I took a workshop on networking, was to ask them about their journey and how they're doing and just how they got there. Ask them what they're passionate about. Tell them, find things that are of common interest and what you both love, and you'll be excited because these things will come together so naturally and so organically. And then people will be intrigued by you, and then they're going to be interested in what you have to quote unquote sell, because you're not just handing them that business card. That's a lot of talking. Okay, so once you've laid that groundwork, once you've been genuine with people and you're starting to be more visible in these Facebook groups, in the town hall meetings, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Literally, like my women in business group, we have a Zoom meeting once a month. In the morning, it's like a coffee talk and everybody goes around the room. We talk about what we're working on. Generally, I'm like, hey, we're starting our online farmers market soon. Join us on Saturdays. And you plug that, and you're all also like, hey, I'm taking singing lessons. Just be personable. So once you've laid down that groundwork, don't be afraid to ask. So this is me posting in a networking group and saying, hey, I need help. And there's me being like a genuine person as well as vulnerable. Like, I need help. COVID has hit us, and we're wanting to recover from our losses for the year. And so I did this post back in October because we were having an online auction in November. And I got over 40 donations from that one post. All of them were gift certificates. I had a few baskets. But the gift certificates were all things I could email to the winner. And all of them had a value. The majority of the value was $75 and upwards. I didn't have to call anybody. I didn't have to spend any time crafting a fancy letter that, detailed my mission and all of that work, because they already know me. Because I've laid that groundwork to talk to them and tell them what I do as part of a natural conversation. So as I collected these donations, I also collected the owner name, the business name, their logos, their contact information, what they're excited about, what they love. And so I built a database of 40 plus businesses who are already keen and already interested in what I have to do and my mission, my organization's mission. So I did this fundraiser back in November, and we raised $3,000 in 4 days. And when it came time for people to collect their winnings, I literally just sent them an email. Here's your gift certificate. Thank you so much for supporting our organization. Or I connected the sponsor with the winner and been like, here, arrange. There was literally no stuff in my house that people had to pick up. We had maybe a few items that were picked up at the online farmers market pickup station. But other than that, as someone who's been planning fundraisers for like over 15 years, my mind was blown. And all of this is because, again, I laid that groundwork and I started those relationships with people. And now I have people I can go back to because they're already invested. They already see the benefits to go through some higher stages of sponsorship that I'm excited to share with them. So not only do I have this database of people who have donated before with their silent auction donations, but I thought I want to take this one step further. And I want to reach a little bit outside of my base of Maple Ridge and Port Coquitlam and see what I can do. And so I created this form. We use Airtable, which is a customer relationship management database. It's free for some options, but you can pay a little bit more. And I made a form in Airtable and I've put it out there. I put a little bit of info about our demographics because people love to know, like, who's our target market and some of our stats. Like, we have a weekly e-newsletter that has 2,500 subscribers. We have a great social media presence. We have a website that's also an e-commerce store and that has hundreds of unique views per week. So all of these things are very attractive to people who want to sponsor or advertise with us. And I also threw in a little carrot there. And that carrot is, I'm going to do some draws for some free advertising space. So you always see these on Facebook. They're like, do you want to, get your free social media calendar for the year? Sign up with your email. Well, this is the same thing. I'm offering them something of value because I want something of value in return. And basically, I want their contact information. I want what they're interested in. I want their business. And then I have a way in this database form to collect their logo or promotional image. And then that way it's all there for me to pick and choose from. I don't have to scramble and run around trying to be like, oh, who's going to be our featured business of the week? It's literally all there in that package. And then you'll see here in the bottom right-hand corner that I've also written in, like, yes, I love this freebie, but I would be happy to pay more to be listed frequently throughout the year. So it says, yes, please email me about how I can pay, keyword pay, and sponsor to be featured more often through the farmers market. People like mortgage brokers, real estate agents, all of those like services opportunities are just such a key demographic for us to have when it comes to sponsors. Okay, so now you've created your database, you're nurturing those connections, you're talking to people, you're attending network events. It does sound a little overwhelming. I totally get that. But once you start getting into the rhythm of it, it really isn't. It's minimal time and you're just, most of us are on social media anyway. You just respond to a few things and, make friendships with people. Who doesn't want more friends? It's great. So now we're going to go into how you can make money on what parts of your market. So we're going to start with your online space. Most of us should have a website, I'm hoping. So one thing that you can sell on your web space is a banner. So this is a banner that I have on our e-commerce store. Full disclaimer, we don't actually sell artisan crafts at this time, so that's just on there, but it doesn't go to any crafts. So this is on all of our vendor pages, and it's click-through, so you can actually get to Maple Washing's website. I made this in Canva, which is a great free tool. I know Lily went over it last week. And you can pay a little premium and you can do a few more things with it. Or I think they offer it to you for free, as Lily mentioned as well. And so it's a fun, dynamic ad. It really pops. And then I can also, through our website platform, which is called Squarespace, I can also download the analytics and find out how many times people have clicked through, so that I can report back to our sponsor to let them know that, oh, this many people clicked through this week. Do you want to renew next week? And we'll see if we can get even more. And so that way you're giving them this return on investment, this ROI, with actual data attached to it. So they'll be super interested to see that. We also have an e-newsletter. And we do a little section on our e-newsletter that's our featured business sponsor. So again, that's another asset, online asset, that you shouldn't be giving away for free. You have a base of customers who are receiving your information into their homes, into their phone, and this is prime real estate for you to earn extra revenue for your farmers market. This is sponsorship revenue that could easily be sold. And if you're wondering, well, how much do I cost that out? That's a really good question. And what I've done, because every community is different, and so what I've done is I've actually spoken to other people who sell online ads within my community. Like we have a magazine called What's on Maple Ridge or What's on Poco. And so I've gotten their price listings. And I also make sure that, like they have an audience of 10,000. So I want to scale that back for an audience of 2,500. But you also want to share with your sponsors your open rate and your click-through rate so that they have another idea of like how often people will be looking at it. And then again, once the campaign is set, you can report back to them and let them know like, hey, we had 10 people click through your ad. Do you want to try again next week and see how it goes? I'll give it to you for half price. So there's so much fun you can have with this in terms of customization. It's flexible, and all it does is like, you've already got their logo because you did your database form, and then you copy and paste their copy, or you get them to send in copy. Easy peasy. That can run you anywhere from, if you want to do it for $25, cool, but you could sell it for $125 for this. How many weeks do you have your e-newsletter going out? We do weekly. If we run 26 markets a year at $100 a pop, that's $2,600 that you literally just put a logo and some copy into the web. You're doing your newsletter anyway. It's not that hard, and it's money. We also can do social media shoutouts. So if you're doing kind of like a theme between your website banner and your e-newsletter, and then do like an extra social media shout out, and it all looks great because you have the same logo through it, I would tie all of those up into one pretty little package for a online service for the week. So you could charge anywhere from, I would say, like $125 to almost $250, depending on your reach. So you do have to take some time to look at that and even work with your sponsors. But the great question that everybody hates when you go to ask for something is, what's your budget? Because that person has a number in mind, but they want to hear your budget number first, right? Because I'm not going to say, I'll charge you $100 if that person comes back and says, oh, I've got about $200 for all of this online advertising. Great, I'll take your $200. Not a problem. I'll do that. So yeah, you definitely have to set the pricing and determine what's going to work for your market and what the value is. And please don't undervalue your connections and your assets and what you have, because farmers markets are an incredible platform. We feed people. We're an outlet for artisans. Normally we have music, we have programming, education, advocacy. That is a lot of value wrapped up in this beautiful package. And so don't undervalue what we have to sell. So make sure that you keep that in mind when you're looking at your pricing. And now your in-person space. Can't wait. Market season's coming back soon. So things are a little different, of course, because of COVID. So we don't have as many programs or as many fun things that we normally have. However, on the same, area, we are the only thing happening in town in terms of, people popping up tents, people coming and shopping. And so when we're the only essential service, you want to be able to say, hey, we've got 500 to 800 to 1,200 people walking through our gates at this day, and there are no other festivals right now. So we have that market cornered until things start to open up again. So there are things you can do. Again, like I'm using maple washing as an example. They had this amazing sign that they traditionally would use for the home show, but the home show was canceled last year, and I offered them a spot at our market. And I said, hey, you know what? Bring your giant sign, set it up. We can't have you at market because, that's just a space that, I'm not comfortable having extra people there in terms of, community groups at this time. That's just me personally at our market. But feel free to put your signage. People can take pictures of it. It's very clear what you do. And it's a great way to fill a gap if somebody no-shows for the day. And then we also have stand-up banners. Now, if you're like us, you only have one way and one way in, one way out at the market. Literally everybody has to pass this sign when they're coming through. And if they're like, oh, I need my gutters washed, then that is a top of mind. Then they're going to see the sign in the market. Then they're going to see our social media shout out. Then they're going to see the banner ad if they go on our website. It's all about that repetition and that keeping that brand top of mind for that week or that month or whatever they choose to buy. That is so valuable right now in a time where we are inundated and bombarded with branding. So people will walk in and they'll see this associated with the farmer's market. They got a ton of referrals for this program that we ran with Maple Washing. And I'll tell you how I got this relationship. Amanda, who's the owner of Maple Washing, I just started to get to know her through my Women in Business group. And I don't personally have a home that needs the gutters cleaned, so the business itself is not, high on my list of interest. But I love Amanda. She is so cool. Her husband is awesome. She swears like a trucker, and she's like the coolest person ever. And I just really connected with her, and we built this foundation, this relationship. And I was just like, you need to be at market. And she's like, I love the market. And then you know what they've done for us too? Not only have they provided sponsorship in terms of money, but they've also, when I need something moved that's large, they'll send their trucks and their guys, and they'll pick up our hand washing station and move it to somewhere else. And that's hands down no problem. I can message her on Facebook and say, I need $100 silent auction donation gift card. Is that okay? And she'll write back, yeah, no problem. We are 100% supporting you. So post-COVID, there are so many other ways that you can have sponsorship at market. I did a really successful music tent program at the New West Farmers Market. So we averaged, I think it was about $3,500 for the year, for the season. It worked out to about $100 a market to pay our musician. And that is so great for realtors. So you'll want to get a branded tent and all of their information, and people see it. And it's, again, that brand recognition, and that brand recognition with your brand. And so it's like, oh, this guy, he supports the market. That's amazing. I'm definitely going to check him out. There's so many people and businesses out there that are trying to stand above everybody else. And we are the perfect, again, value-based organizations to do this for them. So when we get back to post-COVID, if you have a kids program, that's an awesome fit for somebody. Maybe a daycare or, a kids clothing company or nutritionists or anything like that want to sponsor that program. You can have a separate mailing list for that. Chef demos, again, you can have restaurants, there's just so many opportunities to pair with those businesses that you started laying the groundwork for in your networking. Workshops, market bags, t-shirts, hats, recipe cards. Like the ideas are endless that you can brand with somebody else's logo and hand out at market, and you can get sponsorship funds for that branding. Get my little note page here. All right. So, crafting that sponsor ad package. Ooh, here we go. I'm going to flip over to my PDF. Just one moment. So again, a little bit different than your regular sponsorship package. So I just want to warn you ahead of time, this is different. And me personally, am very business focused. And so I love nonprofit. I thrive in this industry, and it makes me happy that the work that I do in my community helps people. Hands down, that's what drives me at the end of the day. But I'm also incredibly entrepreneurial in spirit. And I know how to make others thrive and how to make our nonprofit thrive. And so when it comes to sponsorship package, I have the traditional sponsorship package that's like, sponsor us for the whole market season at, $3,500 to $6,000 pop. Like that's an easy sell for me. I can totally do that. But what we're looking at today is about getting those smaller increments that will add up over the course of the year. So like I said, the online ads, the website banners, the sponsoring signs at the market, doing all of that. And so you don't want that traditional package that's like, here's all the things about us and why you're going to feel good sponsoring our market. I love you guys, but no one cares. You have to tell them what's going to make them successful in their business, and that's why they're going to sponsor you. Oh, you have a newsletter that's 2,500 people? Well, yeah, I want to put an ad in there for $75 for the week. That's not a problem. That's a no-brainer. They're not going to be like, oh, I want to support the local food movement, and by putting my ad in there, I pay for, I don't know, like someone's hourly salary for 4 hours. Yeah, they don't care. They want to see what they're going to get out of this whole situation. So let me share my screen, and I'll give you my slightly unconventional advertising sales sheet, right?
Melissa?
Yeah.
Quick question. We have a question here in the chat box asking about how do we get information on the sponsors audience. So I'm guessing it's referring to better knowing your sponsors and who they want to target. So maybe expanding a bit more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You ask them. You 100% have that conversation. Who are you looking for? Who are the people that purchase your products? Who's using your services? And then you apply that to what you already know of your own data. I mean, let's understand here, a lot of our market shoppers are women because they do the primary grocery shopping for their family. And usually the target age range for our demographic is about 25 to 55, 65. So we're already quite clear who's coming to market, who's spending the money, who's shopping. And so for us, we just have to figure out, like you mentioned, what they're doing too. So for somebody that's like maple washing, for example, it'll be homeowners. So like homeowners that are looking to get their, beautifier, or they're selling, or so they're probably going to be in the maybe 40s to 65 range. And, like that's what I can digest from what they sell. But if you don't know, you need to ask. And the more you ask information, the more they're going to be excited about talking about their business. And again, this is where I was talking in networking, where your active listening skills really come in handy. And you're genuinely interested in what it is, because that's when you start connecting the dots. Oh, their primary demographic is women from this age to this age. Well, that's my demographic. And so like we have that connection. I mean, how many like beauty services do you have in your community? Hairstylists, like waxing, nails, all of these people are small business owners who don't have this major sponsorship budget to spend, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to sponsor your market for the season. But hey, $75 to put an ad in your e-newsletter that goes out to, a couple hundred, a couple thousand people, the chance to do it like an article or a blog post, a video, or an Instagram takeover. All of these things are things that small businesses and medium-sized businesses are very familiar with. Sponsoring a market overhaul is a big picture thing, and a lot of small to medium-sized businesses can't grasp that concept. And so, like I said, the more you lay down that foundation, the more you network with people and write it in your database, on your spreadsheet. Say, hey, maple washing, I had a conversation with Amanda, this is their demographic. And so if you go back and you're like, we're specifically targeting these people, do you want to do an ad for this? Then you're going to be able to connect those dots a lot easier, and you're going to be able to provide them even more value. So this is what I've created, and I do have a link for this. It is in Canva, but I could also send out the link for the template in a PDF if you want to make your own. So it's an advertising sales sheet. And basically I have a little page with just, what it looks like with the big signage, what we're about, just something short. Again, appealing to they're like, oh, we need to help the community. Probably not the best way to appeal to these smaller to medium-sized businesses. Everybody, don't get me wrong, everybody loves what we do and everyone wants to help out. But at the end of the day, it's how do we make them money and what's their return on investment. So here we go. We have the ads that you can create. So I've put our banner on there, and that can change up. We can put different veggies depending on what's in season. I didn't want to confuse people by putting blueberries because that's not going to come till later. And they'll be like, where's the blueberries? Because. So I put a picture of what it looks like on our website. And then I've just plopped in some numbers in terms of pricing. So you could do $75 for a week or $250 for a month. Again, I can't determine what the pricing is for you. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Just hear more about your community and what you have in terms of your reach, and then maybe help you figure out what your pricing would be based on that. But it's going to be really specific to each market. The email newsletter, you plop in some information about how many subscribers you have, what's the open rate. And if you're working with MailChimp, sometimes it'll tell you like, oh, you have this open rate, that's better than average. Put that in there. We have a better than average open rate of 64% and a click-through rate of 43%. And then you can put the ad dimensions and what you need in there. And then you've got the social media ad as well. So that's a shout out. You could have different types, like I mentioned, an Instagram takeover, a Facebook Live, all sorts of different things that you can add in there. This is sort of like the basic to get you going. And then we have an ad sheet for the in-person advertising. So the large signage that you can put up, the entrance signing that you can walk by. Also, great success in branded tent. I find you have a better success rate if you tell them that you'll store the tent, which is not easy for everybody. But if you store the tent and your volunteers and staff put it up every day, and that just takes, if this is somebody that would do it for the whole season, though, I'm not talking about once or twice during the season. Like if somebody wants to do, the musician tent for the entire season, then yeah, give them a great price. And then if you can store the tent for them, that works out really well. And then something that I haven't quite gotten into, but I really want to, is like t-shirts. So wearing like somebody's real estate t-shirt, or having like the sleeve branded, which is great, because it's not like too, like we're not all realtors, but sponsored by like McDonald Realty, so that kind of thing. So once you've started getting these kinds of sponsorships, I added this page, and I think it would be really great to have testimonials. And what's really key here about the testimonials is that you want ROI, like return on investment testimonials. You don't necessarily want a company coming back and saying, oh, it was great. We loved working with your team. They're so nice. That's awesome. I love it when people are complimenting us in our team. Great. But what I want to know is, did you sell anything? Did you get referrals? Like Amanda from People Watching, she's like, oh my gosh, that day that we had our signage out, we got 10 referrals. That's what I want. And so when you go back and you get those testimonials, make sure that, yes, we increased our traffic to our website by 25% on that day that you sent out an ad, and we booked 2 calls or something that's tangible and that will attract other sponsors when you're going out there and you're making those networking calls and you're talking with people, and you'll say, yeah, like, you know, Sherry from A Place to Call Home Mortgage Brokers, she had 3 discovery calls based on our ad that we had in our newsletter or the articles she did on her website. So these are the kinds of things that you want to talk about. And then we have, of course, our contact information at the bottom. So again, this is in Canva, and I'm including the link in the chat, I believe, so that you can actually use it as a template if you have Canva. If you don't have Canva, I really strongly suggest that you sign up because you can make beautiful things. If not, we can send out the PDF and you could also just copy what you see. So now we're going to go back to our PowerPoint.
Melissa, would that be a good moment to expand a bit more on pricing for different sponsorships?
Sure.
Right. So the precise question was mostly about how can markets be more consistent and fair, ensuring that one sponsor is not favored over another, for instance, long-standing sponsors.
I think that that's when you really have to sit down and work out what you want your sponsorship strategy to look like. And that kind of goes into our next slide, is that there are some things that you really need to consider. And that's like, what kind of businesses are you going to have in the sponsorship strategy? And, you know, for a lot of us, like, would we accept people that do like MLM type home businesses? So are you going to allow Tupperware? Are you going to allow Epicure? You know, are you going to allow vendors that are bakers, but not necessarily like sponsors that are bakers, but not necessarily vendors? So before you even get to, well, once you start booking people, then these questions might come up, and it's a good idea to sit down with maybe a fundraising committee or another board member and get an idea and a sense of what is okay and what is not okay. And when you talk about, you know, your existing sponsors, do they have an exclusive right to what they're sponsoring? And I think that's really important, because if you have somebody who's a realtor in your community who sponsors your market every year, and if they put out, you know, a fairly large contribution of either in kind or cash donation, you don't necessarily want to be putting an ad in your newsletter from, you know, his competitor Remax at $75 a pop for 1 or 2 weeks. So you do want to look at what kind of sponsors you're looking for and building a policy around the type of business. And so there might be some things that just don't agree with your demographic. Like perhaps, you know, like a cannabis store isn't your thing, or there just might be some things that aren't a good fit, and feel free to say no. And this is the beauty of it, is that if you're nurturing these relationships, you're creating this database. If somebody comes along that you're not comfortable with, just say no. You're going to be in a spot where you're not so desperate for money that you're just like, yeah, you know what, we're going to take your money, but I don't really feel good about this business fit. Like we had, at Fraser North, we had a sponsor that wanted to come in and give us $5,000, but we felt that they weren't entirely environmentally friendly, so we felt that they were using our brand to greenwash what they were doing, and we didn't agree with that. And so luckily we were in a place that we were like, yeah, we'd love the $5,000, but we don't feel good about it. It's not a good fit, and everything has to be a good fit. So yes, definitely you want to be loyal to the sponsors that have already invested and you've already nurtured that connection and they've already given. So, and you can always, again, have that conversation and say, hey, so-and-so, also a realtor or a mortgage broker, wants to sponsor this part of our market. Like, how would that make you feel? Are you okay with that? Or if not, is there anybody else on your team maybe that would be interested in doing, a smaller ad? But if they're going to be exclusive, that might be at a higher rate. Like, I wouldn't be adverse to saying, well, I've done it in the past where I've been like, great, you want to be a realtor at our market, that's not a problem. But if you want to be the only realtor, you're going to have to pay out for the whole season. That way I don't book anybody else. So again, it's really about knowing your value and leveraging those relationships and nurturing the communications you have with sponsors and having a bit of a strategy in place so that you are comfortable in saying yes or no. Again, it does feel like, I'm not going to lie, it does feel overwhelming, I'm sure, especially if you're a market manager and you have, fundraising is on your plate as well as logistics and all of this stuff. This is where you really need to pull in your board. Part of your board strategy should be networking their relationships. And so if you're the one who puts this program together and then you volunteer your wonderful board to go forth and make connections and bring back those sponsorship money, that's a great way to take it off of your plate, but you still have this kind of ownership over the role and what's coming in. Another point to consider is that data is your friend. I can't tell you how important data is, and collecting stats and impressing people with them and just talking about the data that you have on your website or even in person at the markets, how many people are walking through that door, how many sales that not only have been in your market but in the neighboring community as well. And then the last thing that is the most important, I feel, and I've touched on it many times, but I definitely want to leave you with it, is that nothing beats, when it comes to sponsorship, the personal connections you have. Like, these are the ladies from my Women in Business group. I can tell you that everybody at this table has donated to our silent auction. And it wasn't a hesitation. I didn't have to sell it. I literally was just like, hey, Ariane, can you donate, $150 gift certificate to a photography session? And it's like an immediate yes. And this is because I spent that time and that groundwork asking and asking questions about their business and understanding what they're doing and being just like a person who's not selling stuff in terms of like, here's my card, I want your money. It's like, how can I help you? How can I put you at the forefront of our existing customer database? And yeah, so I think everybody wants to shop local. So small businesses want you to shop local. And so it's just, not only are we offering a space to shop, but by providing this platform for sponsorships, then we're shopping from our wonderful small businesses in our community, and we're supporting them as well. So it's just an overall feel good on a large